Welcome to the next step in building your resume. By now, you've already nailed the executive summary and showcased your core skills in the area of expertise section. Now it's time to bring your career story to life with one of the most important parts of your resume, and that's the professional experience section. This is where everything comes together. It's where you move beyond listing simple responsibilities and start demonstrating your true impact on your organization. As a recruiter, I have looked at thousands and thousands of resumes. One of the things I immediately look at when I look at a resume is the candidate's current or most recent role. The information I see there often plays a significant part in whether or not the candidate will advance in the hiring process. That's how critical this section is, especially the initial part. It's one of the most important parts of your resume. So, what is the professional experience section? The professional experience section is a reverse chronological breakdown of your work history. But this section should not just be a list of all the jobs you've had or experiences you've had and the general job duties and all those kind of things. That's too vague. It should be about the results you have delivered in each of those positions. So in this section, you should list your job title, company name, location, and employment dates. Use bullet points to highlight impactful accomplishments. Include numbers, metrics, and strong action verbs. Show career progression and leadership. And finally, be tailored to the job you're applying to. It's important to remember employers aren't just looking for someone who's done the job, they're looking for someone who's made a difference. One of the biggest mistakes I see on resumes is candidates being far too vague and generic in their professional experience section. I get resumes all the time from law enforcement professionals where they write that they responded to emergency calls for service. Great. Thank you very much for your years of service. However, the same can be said for the other 800,000 or so other law enforcement professionals in the country. This may be tough to hear, but simply saying that you responded to emergency calls for service is not going to be enough to land you a high paying, high impact career in the private sector. The current job market is simply far too competitive. Recruiters and hiring managers are looking for high achievers who will drive their organization forward, not just do the status quo. So let's talk about how to create an effective professional resume, professional experience section of your resume. You'll want to pull out your experience worksheet as we go through this process because you've already documented the roles you've had and some of the major duties, responsibilities, and accomplishments you've had in those positions. We can use a lot of that information in your resume right now. As I said at the start of this module, your work experience needs to be in reverse chronological order, starting with your current or most recent job first. I see a lot of candidates listing their jobs that they've had at the very start of their career at the beginning of the resume and going forward from the very first job up into the current job, which is then listed at the bottom of the second page, barely noticeable. That's a big mistake. Remember, recruiters only spend a few seconds looking at your resume. So it's essential you highlight your most recent and most impressive experience first. If you are a lieutenant with your agency, that is going to be far more impactful to a recruiter than highlighting the job you held at McDonald's or Wendy's while you were in high school. So start with your current or most recent job first and go backwards from there. For each position you've held, follow this simple structure. First, start with the basics. That's the organization's name, the location, dates of employment, and your job title. Keep it clean and consistent. I like to use this blue colored line to highlight the organization that you were with. You can see the line right here. Write the name of the organization, the location. I just do city and state, which is fine, and then dates you have been with that organization. If you have held numerous positions with your agency or organization, you will put the dates for each position down below as well. For example, let's say you worked for the Huntsville Police Department in Huntsville, Alabama. You would write down that the location is Huntsville, Alabama, and then the dates you would put down that you've been with the organization from, let's say, January 2020 until present. which means you're still employed there. There's no need to list the exact date that you started or ended with them. The month and the year are totally fine. If you've already left your last job, let's say you're unemployed or retired, you would put the end date where it currently says present. So put the date where you finally ended. Then below the colored line, you would put your first job title. Let's say you were a financial crimes detective. If this is the only role you've held with your agency, then you are all done with this title part. However, if you have held other roles before being a financial crime detective, you will want to put the dates that you were in this position. So let's say you got promoted from being a police officer to the financial crimes detective in January of 2025, and you're still in the financial crimes detective position. You would write down January 2025 to present. Then later on in your resume, you would do the same thing for your time as a police officer, and you would put the dates you were in that position as well. Next, you're going to use bullet points to highlight your achievements and major duties. I see far too many candidates using paragraph format for the professional experience section. I strongly advise against it. Big block of text is tough on the eyes and overwhelming for a recruiter when they look at hundreds of resumes a day. The last thing you want a recruiter to think when they are looking at your resume is, oh crap, do I have to read all that? And trust me, I have felt that before. Bullet points are just far more easy on the eyes, they're easier to consume, and they're easier to really highlight your significant accomplishments and job duties. When doing your bullet points, I like to use the CAR method for the bullet points in this section to help paint a miniature picture of what you've accomplished. And CAR stands for, well, the C is for challenge. What was the issue or task you were faced with? A is for action. What steps were taken to solve it? And then R is result. What happened as a result of your efforts and your actions? So here are some examples that you might want to consider for your own resume. Led over 15 investigations, securing full restitution for victims within 4 weeks by leveraging forensic tools and interagency coordination. Or you could say, partnered with regional law enforcement agencies to dismantle a retail theft ring, resulting in 12 arrests and a 60% drop in related incidents. Or implemented a case tracking system that improved documentation accuracy by 40% and reduced investigative time by 20%. You probably noticed that for each of these bullet points, I had some data, number, or metric in the bullet point. And that's step 3 of this process. Quantify achievements whenever possible. Numbers tell the story faster than words ever could. They show the reader what you have accomplished by using specifics, not vague generic phrases, which is what most candidates do. If you can measure it, you should absolutely include it. So here's a weak example for what you could write on your resume. Conducted financial crimes investigations. Pretty weak, right? Again, cool, but again, there are thousands of detectives, investigators out there doing the exact same thing. What makes you different? Why should the reader care about you? Why should they spend more time on you? So here's a much better example to basically the same thing. Investigated over 25 felony criminal cases annually, resulting in the recovery of over $500,000 in misappropriated funds. See how much better that sounds? Remember, most recruiters and hiring managers have absolutely no law enforcement background. In fact, the closest thing they've ever come to doing to be similar to what we've done is watching live PD while sitting on their couch. Many of them think officers are just kicking down doors and tackling bad guys, and that's all they think about when they consider a law enforcement officer and what they do. It is our job to showcase how much more you bring to the table than just a tough guy kicking down doors. While we may know what goes into being a patrol officer, a detective, lieutenant, or a deputy chief of police, you want to assume that the reader of your resume almost certainly will not have any idea. We have to show them with the incredible value that you bring to the table. Okay, the next crucial step for writing a very strong professional experience section of your resume is to use strong action verbs. Start every bullet point with a powerful verb that communicates initiative and results. Again, recruiters read hundreds of resumes a day. Don't bore them with weak action verbs and weak phrases. Start each bullet point off with intention. Here are just a few examples of verbs you could consider and work into your own resume. Led, analyzed, executed, streamlined, coordinated, investigated, advised, implemented, mentored, and reduced. Again, avoid weak phrases like responsible for or duties included. You're not writing a job description. You're demonstrating value. Because at the end of the day, that's really what a resume is all about, showing why you are the perfect fit for the job. Here are some examples of strong professional resume sections that you can get some motivation from. So perhaps you were a fraud investigator for the Huntsville Police Department. We'll use them again. We will document their agency and include their location and dates of employment, as you can see right here. Then we will write down some bullet points underneath the job title. So your current or most recent job, I typically recommend having between 7 and 10 bullet points or so. Not a hard rule. But every subsequent role, you should have slightly fewer bullet points, as you want your most and primary focus to be on your most recent roles. So for this candidate, we could write down these bullet points. Led 15 or more fraud investigations at a time, ensuring restitution within 4 weeks and successfully prosecution of offenders. Analyzed financial records and digital evidence, uncovering fraudulent transactions totaling $500,000 or more. Partnered with cross-agency teams, streamlining workflows and increasing resolution rates by 30%. Develop cybersecurity protocols that reduce data breaches by 40%. Perhaps before this job, you were a patrol officer with the Marana Police Department in Marana, Arizona. Because this is an entirely new agency, we would put in a new color line right in the location and dates you were with that organization. Then we would document your bullet points of achievements and major duties once again. So here we would say, conducted 1,500 proactive patrols, contributing to a 15% decrease in community crimes. Responded to high-risk calls and de-escalated violent situations using crisis intervention techniques. Mentored and trained over 10 new recruits, improving onboarding success and retention. And led tactical operations that boosted unit response times by 25%. Okay, here are your hero's tips for writing a winning professional experience section. Stick with the standard titles. Use recognized titles like police officer, detective, or sergeant so that both recruiters and the applicant tracking system software understand your role. Some people try to be creative and use terms like peacekeeper or marketing ninja. Don't do that. It looks stupid and you will just hurt your chances of advancing in the hiring process. So use straightforward names. Next, use bullet points, not paragraphs. Big walls of text don't get read. Bullet points do. Make the recruiter's life as easy as possible. Cut the cop speak. I know we all know what we mean, but a recruiter may not. So instead of saying FTO, use field training officer. Translate terms so that civilian employers can understand, and don't assume that they already do. Prioritize recent roles. I recommend candidates really focus on the roles they've held in the last 10 to 15 years or so. So for those roles, you should be including bullet points of your accomplishments and major duties. For any older position past the 10 or 15 year mark, I recommend creating an additional experience section as I did here. Here you will list out the job title, the organization, and the dates of employment, but no bullet points. Remember, a resume in the private sector is not supposed to go past 2 pages or max 3. If you were to go into detail on every role you've ever held, chances are your resume would be dozens of pages long, and it would make each section look disorganized and far too short. You do not want to do a disservice of your most recent roles, so focus on them. The only exception I make to the rule about older experience is military experience. Companies really value hiring military veterans, and many companies get tax breaks for doing so. So if you have a prior military background, you want to absolutely make that known by creating a military experience section where you mention your job title, the military branch, and dates of employment, as well as major achievements. Even if you were in the military over 25 years ago, I would still make a section of your resume to highlight the fact that you are a veteran. You should be very proud of the fact that you served our country. However, besides military, I don't recommend going to detail on roles you've held over 15 years ago. All right, the next hero's tip: tailor your resume for every application. Edit bullet points to reflect the job description for each application. One resume won't fit all job openings. Don't worry too much about the tailoring part, because we will cover that in a future lesson, but I just think it's worth mentioning for now. So now it's your turn to put everything you've learned in this lesson into action. To make the process simpler and more structured for you, download the Professional Experience Builder workshop that I've added to this lesson. This step by step worksheet will help you write powerful, accomplish driven resume content for each of your past roles in your professional life. And here's how it works. Step one: capture your job snapshot. Start by entering your job title, agency or company's name, location, and dates of employment that you had for every role in your professional life. This creates a clear and consistent foundation for each position on your resume to make sure they look identical. Step two: brainstorm bullet points using the CAR method. For every role you've held, use the challenge, action, result method to brainstorm strong bullet points. Think about specific problems you faced, what you did to solve them, and what impact you made on your organization. This workbook includes prompts to help you identify key accomplishments you might want to add to your resume that you may have overlooked. Step three: choose strong action verbs and impactful phrases for your resume. I've given some strong examples of action verbs you can use to describe accomplishments and job duties that you had in your career. And these are just some of many examples of strong action verbs you can use. Replace vague phrases like responsible for with dynamic alternatives like led, analyzed, executed, and coordinated. This step alone can dramatically increase the professionalism and clarity of your resume. Step four: add metrics and quantify your achievements. Data tells your story faster than words ever could. I've given a few examples of data or metrics that you could include in your resume, such as the number of cases handled, amount of money saved or recovered, response times reduced, or training hours delivered. Again, these are just some of the many examples. Step five: review the completed example in the worksheet. Refer to the sample entry in the workbook as your guide. Study how it's structured, how metrics are included, and how each bullet point starts with a strong action verb. Use this as a model for your own content. Take the information you documented in all these sections on this worksheet to write out one complete bullet point for your resume. It may feel challenging at first, but trust me, the more you do it, the easier it becomes. You can use this worksheet to write out all your bullet points before transferring those over to your resume. Or if you prefer, you can just use it for one or two practice ones and then write out all your bullet points on or directly on your resume. Whatever strategy works best for you is the right one and the right way to do it. Once complete, your professional experience section should do the following. It should clearly show where you worked and when. Describe your actions and impact using strong, quantifiable bullet points. Reflect on your career growth and professional strengths, and align with your desired transition into the private sector. So, your action step for this lesson is to craft the professional experience portion of your resume. This section may take a little longer than the previous sections, but that's okay. Use all the worksheets that we previously worked on for guidance and inspiration. And if you're struggling with how to phrase a certain bullet point, mention it in the comment section below, and I'll do my best to give you my advice on the best way to articulate that achievement or job duty. So, what's coming up next? In the next lesson, we'll be putting the finishing touches on your resume by building out the education, certifications, and awards sections of your resume. These final elements add credibility, showcase your ongoing development, and help recruiters understand what sets you apart and what makes you different from other candidates. You may have noticed that we actually have skipped over the professional highlights section near the top of the resume template that I use. This was done on purpose, as I like to create the entire resume first before focusing on the absolute highlights of your career. I think it makes it easier that way. But we will cover that section of your resume in the next lesson as well. All right, you are doing absolutely amazing work. Your resume is coming together really, really well. Get the professional experience section done. And when that's finished, I will see you in the next lesson.